Hello and welcome to the latest webinar as part of the Innovative Law Practice Techniques series. Before I turn things over to David Roof, I have a few quick announcements. Immediately following the presentation, we will transition to a Q&A segment where I will open the floor for any questions. Please enter your questions into the question box on the GoToWebinar panel on the right side of your screen during or after the presentation. I will address all questions at the end of the presentation. Also, you'll notice if you check out the handouts panel on the right side of your screen, we have attached the slides for today's presentation. With that, I'd like to welcome David Roof, the organizer of this session, who will provide some background info on the LPM series and introduce today's speakers. David?
Yeah, thanks, Austin. My name is David Roof, and I'm the LPMO officer of Baker Donaldson and the chair of the ABA's Legal Project Management Interest Group that organized this webinar. In 2016, our group started our Innovative Law Practice Techniques series and have produced a number of sessions on topics such as LPM, contract management, knowledge management, pricing, and estimating fees in the U.S. and Australia, all of which are available on the ABA YouTube channel. We're very excited about today's speaker and topic. I'd like to welcome Brian Kuhn, who will be discussing IBM's Cognitive Legal. This is a topic of great interest in the legal industry, and if you run a search on Brian, you will find that he is really a celebrity in this space. He is the co-founder and global co-leader of IBM Watson Legal. He is a former practicing attorney and an inventor of IBM's outside counsel Insight Solution, and is responsible for growing that brand for IBM worldwide. He's responsible for defining the intersection between legal AI and blockchain technologies, and was the pioneering member of the Global Legal Blockchain Consortium and the MIT Legal Forum for AI and Blockchain. He's a regular speaker on AI all over the world and is helping legal clients define where cognitive capabilities intersect with their needs. Brian has also advised companies, law firms, governments, and direct heads of state on these topics. I want to thank Brian very much for sharing his time and insights with us today, and we'll now turn it over to him.
Thank you for that. And thank you all for joining. I'd like to begin with a thought experiment. Imagine that I gave you a magical rubber ball, that ball had the ability to bounce to an unlimited height. We'll suspend the laws of physics for this. And I then ask you to start bouncing the ball with the knowledge that each bounce will be twice as high as the previous one. So if the first bounce is 10 feet off the ground, how high will it go on the 10th bounce? And the answer is that it will have topped a small mountain of about 5,000 feet. The thought experiment really articulates the fact that AI is not progressing in a linear fashion. And that represents a huge challenge for humans. We're inherently linear thinkers. And trying to grasp nonlinear change that's exponential is, it's just not how we're wired. And that creates a tremendous disconnect between our intuition and the implications of the actual rate of change. And that disconnect only grows as we add accelerated exponential growth. So we're at the top of the mountain, 5,000 feet. That's how high. It doesn't seem extraordinary. And your intuitive guess about how many bounces it would go, how high it would go after the 10th bounce is probably correct. But how high will it be after 4 more bounces? By the 14th bounce, it will have crested the summit of Everest. It'll be approaching the ceiling of commercial air traffic. And that's a bit more impressive, but let's not stop there. It can reach an unlimited height, after all, for a theoretical ball. So how high would the ball have bounced after 21, 29, 37, 45 bounces? And the answers now start to stretch our ability to comprehend the distances involved. Technology advances no longer add up, they multiply. In the case of AI, by increasingly larger exponential multipliers. So at 21 bounces, our ball is approaching low Earth orbit. And after 29, we've passed by the moon. Another 8 bounces and we're moving past Mars. And then on the 45th bounce, last one I mentioned, NASA might pick up its faint signal as it whizzes past the first Voyager spacecraft nearly 17 billion miles into deep space. After 88 bounces, you'll never see the ball again. It will be outside the visible universe. And so you've already heard about me. It makes sense to define our terms. What do we mean by AI? There's no one specific definition for it. It's an umbrella term meant to encompass different component parts, different technologies like machine learning, natural language processing, deep learning, etc. What's more important than what it's made out of is what it does. What is the promise of AI? And the promise of AI is the ability to make radically better decisions. And take a moment to look at this picture. Imagine that you had the ability to read and remember every word in every book that you see. And taking it a step further, imagine that you possessed the same level of expertise as each individual author. In other words, if one book was written by a tax lawyer, you would understand it in the context of a tax lawyer's educational and professional experience. And now imagine that you could take all of that knowledge, all of that combined expertise and know-how, and point it at the problem you're trying to solve currently. It isn't possible for a single human being to be an expert in tax law and finance and behavioral economics. AI, though, is beginning to deliver on that level of what I call meta context and identify solutions to problems that would never otherwise occur to us, in some cases, in several lifetimes. 88% of all data is invisible to traditional software. Now, most data, including almost all legal data, is what we call unstructured data. I'm sure you've heard that term. Unstructured data is really human-generated data that's based largely on language. For example, narrative text, such as that contained in pleadings, laws, professional journals, deposition transcripts, emails, not keywords and metadata, but the actual substantive content of legal documents. The problem with mining that content for insight is that human language, and as we know, legal language, is full of ambiguity. We can't communicate the same idea consistently. We do so in hundreds of different ways. We rarely express ourselves literally. And you might know what I mean when I say I'm feeling blue because it's raining cats and dogs, but traditional software does not. It takes us at our word. So historically, computers couldn't make sense of unstructured data because they weren't capable of understanding language like human beings. And not just like human beings, but like lawyers. And not just like lawyers, but like lawyers with expertise in specific practice areas. But today they're becoming fluent in legalese in a meaningful way. What do we mean by cognitive, which is IBM's approach to artificial intelligence? So the Watson platform is the most deployed and implemented AI platform capability in the world across industries. And we've achieved a level of maturity in the insurance industry, the banking industry, healthcare, telco, oil and gas, and have failed and have succeeded and are beginning to take those lessons learned, more than beginning to, we're taking those lessons learned and we're infusing them into what we're doing with Watson Legal. So there are three elements to a cognitive solution, and let's break them down. They understand, reason, and they learn. And in understanding, they manage ambiguity, the variations on the theme of conveying the same concept that I mentioned earlier. They comprehend the nuances of human language. Understanding language isn't about just understanding words, and that's important. It's about understanding meaning. And two people can use the same words, but what they mean by them depends on the context of the situation, the context of their profession, of their company culture. And traditional computers, they're terrible at inferring meaning. Again, they reason. Cognitive systems reason. They form hypotheses behind the scenes about the appropriateness of their response in the context of what I meant, and they test those hypotheses, and they do so in the background before they surface an answer. And because they can read up to 800 million pages per second, cognitive systems, they can identify connections that I personally never could. And it's not a matter of how brilliant a human being is. The most brilliant group of human beings could never, they would never have enough time to form these, to identify these trends and patterns. And they learn, they improve with each interaction. They develop expertise that reflects the needs of your firm, your company, your clients. And this is the difference between a one-size-fits-all point solution, Microsoft Word, like the internet, and technology that identifies opportunities for success that are tailored to you. So there's a massive amount of data proliferating in the world today, and that's not news. We've all heard that the growth of data is exponential. In every conference that we go to, we're given statistics. I think we need, but we're given statistics about how much data there is in the world. And we've probably all heard that the amount of data doubles every 2 years. But what's more interesting than that is by 2020, it will double every 12 hours, according to Scientific American. How do we mine that data? How do we turn it into an opportunity? And not just keep up with it, but use it to gain new advantages. Because the truth is that the volume of data that's proliferating and our access to it will help solve otherwise intractable problems. And I'll give you an example of where we're doing that now. And it's a healthcare example, but we use some of the similar solution architecture that facilitated the use case I'm about to share in Watson Legal. There's a protein, a particular protein, it's called P as in Peter 53. P53 inhibits tumor growth in cancer patients. For the past 20 years, doctors at Baylor University Medical School have identified one protein per year that acts as a kind of switch to activate P53. They're trying to build a compendium of these ancillary proteins. And Baylor Medical School approached us, and they wanted to know if they could use Watson to identify those proteins more quickly. But there was a rub, there was a challenge. They would not tell us what 19 proteins they discovered, in addition to P53, the 20th. All they would tell us about was P53. They wanted to see if Watson could analyze the same medical data, the same peer-reviewed medical journal articles that their physicians, that their oncologists did, and their researchers, and identify those same ancillary proteins. And so we were given 23 million articles, books, and studies, as well as access to 3 oncologists. And the goal was simple, could we identify the same proteins? And we did. And it didn't take 10 years. It didn't take 1 year. It didn't take months. It took 2 weeks. And although that is, I think, very impressive and led to impressive outcomes for a number of patients, what was more impressive is that the system identified 7 proteins, so almost 50% more, that the human doctors had no idea existed. By reading, by cross-referencing, by looking at non-obvious connections, surfacing insights. So we can begin to see that, when we know what we're looking for, which is what traditional analytics helps with, we know we can use traditional analytics. But when we don't know what we don't know, we have an idea of what we're looking for, or where we're trying to identify risk patterns, that's where AI can really help in ambiguous situations. Of course, this is exactly what happens every single day in the legal industry. Imagine that you represent Acme Corporation. You've represented Acme for 10 years, and Acme's satisfied with your service, but they want to vet other law firms. What you might do is you might look at all of the work that you've done for Acme, all of the work product you've produced for them over the last 10 years, if you preserved it, and mine it in the context of Acme's current problem. So you're operationalizing your data, and your data that is in the context of your specific relationship with Acme, just not in general, but with Acme, determining what worked and what didn't, according to the scope of the engagement they hired you for, and democratizing that knowledge throughout your firm or throughout a practice, so that you can delight Acme in a way that you would be challenged to do without assistance, because you need to bring new associates up to speed, because everybody doesn't have same access to information. And what kind of insights might you see? Well, imagine that this is your client, and the kind of insights that we're looking at right now on the screen are the traditional insights that software can deliver, and they are deterministic. It's either one thing or the other. This client's family size can be determined as specific. Her marital status can be determined as specific. Her location can be determined as specific. The gender, income level, etc. After that, we began to move into the world of advanced analytics, and we were able to mine social media data for her wish list. What can we see about her? Her geolocation information, the time of day that she logs into various systems, her banking deposits and withdrawals, her purchase history, etc. That's relevant. But with AI, we're able to go much further. Where is she on the hedonism spectrum? Is she an extrovert? And this might not be an individual, by the way. We can perform the same analysis on a company. How does she communicate? What does she mean by what she says? We can understand our clients ever so much better than we've been able to before with AI. and get closer to them and differentiate that way. But of course, every story needs conflict. And most law firms and internal law departments have told us that they have incredibly siloed IT environments. Many of their software tools don't talk to each other. And unless law firms and corporate law departments can evaluate data from their different software tools simultaneously, they won't realize the promise of AI that I mentioned earlier, the ability to make better decisions, because they won't have meta context. A great example is cross-selling. And to use another medical example to convey that, think about the fact that you go to a doctor who's a specialist in a certain component part of your body. You go to a nephrologist for kidney problems, a cardiologist for heart problems, and doctors don't see the whole person. It's not possible for them to. In similar fashion, what if we could see the whole client and preempt their needs? So the data silo problem is a problem, but not an intractable problem, as we'll see. But what are your clients' plans for AI? This is something I like to share with lawyers. We hear AI is attaining different maturity levels, but what are your clients doing with it, and which industries are they using it the most aggressively? How much are they investing in it? Because that's going to inform the way we advise our clients going forward. And so IBM surveyed 550 technology executives as well as CEOs. So these are C-suite people amongst very large companies to try to get a sense of what they were doing and what their intent was around AI. And in terms of the survey grouping, it broke down by revenue in the following way, as you can see. So these are the sizes of the companies by revenue that we were interacting with. And what we learned is that executives are already seeing a positive impact on operational efficiency from AI automation of high volume tasks. And they believe that accelerating that over time will have a positive impact on their operational efficiency. They believe intelligent machines will have a meaningful impact on their business performance in the next 3 years. 75% believe this. That intelligent machines will provide new categories of insight, as I've summarized so far, that enhance decision-making, that there'll be an impact on quality, that natural language processing will allow human to device and device to human understanding. In other words, you can communicate with your device in a way that's natural. You don't have to translate it into the way the computer understands things. And that increasing automation will reduce financial risk. And if we look even further, we'll see that 76% of executives surveyed report that, so these are the main 3 findings. Operational efficiency will go up. Meaningful impact will go up. And these are short-term plans rather than just what they're already doing. And that intelligent machines will lead to higher value work for employees. And I can tell you that the industries that are focusing the most aggressively on AI are the auto industry, the insurance industry, or I should say financial services, retail, telco, oil and gas, and healthcare, in that order. How do you know you have a problem AI can solve? I would be lying if I said that it was a silver bullet. It's absolutely not. There are some problems that make sense for the application of AI, and there are some that really don't. You just don't need it. So we recommend when to use AI when problems are complex, when information and the situation shift, and the outcome depends upon context. When questions like, what is the best strategy for this client, are at issue. When data sources are diverse, when they change, when they update, when information is largely unstructured, and when there's no clearly right answer, when a probabilistic approach, a more human approach, is more appropriate than a deterministic approach. When not to use AI, well, when predictable, repeatable results are required, as when we look at financial data, when all the data is structured, numeric, and predictable, and when a probabilistic approach is not desirable or appropriate. A good idea does not guarantee a good use case. We meet with clients who enthusiastically share, frankly, brilliant ideas with us. But no matter how brilliant the ideas are, they have to align with technical feasibility. We always lead with a business discussion, not a technology discussion. But it's important that we align what our clients want to do, and this is true of not just IBM, but any AI vendor, with what's actually possible, so that it's not too expensive, so that it doesn't take too long to implement, so that it gives you the benefit that you're looking for. We are not a hammer looking for a nail. And when I say we, I mean collectively those that build and sell AI solutions. And so if we're aligning with a clearly recognized business opportunity or pain point, then we AI vendors are more likely to succeed for our clients. I would like to do something with AI. If a client comes to us with that declaration, that's dangerous. Do you have a knowledge management strategy in place? What's top of mind for you from a business perspective? Also, AI solutions are viable when they're associated with augmenting complex processes that need a lot of analysis, for example. There are a lot of moving parts, a lot of patterns, and they have an element that involves understanding, reasoning, and learning. And the data is available. Data is the key. It's garbage in, garbage out. So only if data is clean, cleaning it isn't an issue, it's pretty easy to do. Only if data is clean, but also only if the data sources are narrowly construed to the scope of the use case, not a billion data sources, but just the ones you need to augment what you're already doing. Only then will we show success. It's like fake news. You can run the best AI algorithms across it that you can imagine, but the insights that are derived will have no quality. Shauna and I, and Shauna Hoffman is the co-founder of Watson Legal with me. We've conducted over 125 now different workshops with clients, and also just at universities, at industry events. And the purpose was to earn the right to go to market in the legal domain. IBM has not traditionally served this space, and we appreciate that legitimacy has to be earned. And so we decided to go out and ask the market how we might do that. And so we provided we produced a workshop methodology as well as a way of ranking use cases. We asked each organization to walk into these workshops with 10 ideas, and we ranked them. We left with one ranked idea, and then we ranked all of those top ranked ideas across the world. And that's informed our response to serving this industry. I don't think many organizations have gone out and asked. I think many have assumed, and I hope that this is a way that we can deliver value to our clients, and we're happy to freely share this information, the way that we rank, with the idea that folks can use this methodology to rank all AI vendors for feasibility and fit, not just us. But one of the things we look at, and if you're interested in seeing those metrics, I'll provide them. This is a brief summary, but they're pretty detailed. What is the benefit to you of an AI solution? It's high if it provides a clear and significant financial return on investment, and the quantitative and qualitative benefits can be easily defined. And you can read this. I won't read it all here, but the other main factor is, what is the benefit to the end user? Are you the end user, an attorney within a firm, or is one of your clients an end user? Do you want to build and monetize a solution? Strategic alignment, again, AI vendors fail when we're hammers looking for nails. And then, what is an organization's appetite for speed to implementation? IBM recently implemented an anti-money laundering solution for a bank. It took 2 years to do. The bank was completely satisfied with that. That was reasonable. But other organizations might not find a 2-year implementation reasonable. They might want a 6-week implementation. It depends upon what you want to achieve and what your appetite for time to impact is. When it comes to Watson, it's not one thing. It's 60 different capabilities that we wrap around our clients' needs. And these are modular. So this is what we mean by a platform rather than a point solution. It's not just a contract due diligence solution. It's whatever you want to be. And those use cases that I mentioned that came out of our workshop process, we tried to identify dominant themes and then build 80% built solutions, wrap the remaining 20% around client needs. And I say this again, it's not necessarily IBM centric. This is a strategy that a lot of other organizations are now adopting so that they can be more flexible in serving their clients. So this is a view of the market and what AI vendors are doing to delight their clients. What are some of the top use cases that emerged out of those 100+ workshops? The first one is not one that makes many law firm lawyers happy. And this is a solution that I invented called Outside Counsel Insights. And we know that the top pain point of the GC's office, particularly in financial services companies, is outside counsel spend. They spend between 30 and 60% for their entire law department's annual budget. And I'll just target insurance companies here on outside counsel. That's a lot of money. And they're looking for ways to reduce it and to really the issue is not, it's not a gotcha tool. The issue is vague billing entries. Not negligently drafted billing entries, but just vague billing entries. Continued drafting motion. Now, if you're a large auto P&C insurer and you receive 14,000 invoices per month over the life cycle of matters that last 18 to 24 months, you're reviewing those invoices internally against your billing guidelines. And you're only looking at that month's invoice. You don't have a view of the total life cycle of a matter or across similar matters. What we've been able to do is to train a tool to read narrative task descriptions within invoices and also to assign the right UTBMS codes. And by understanding, again, legalese, we're able to help our clients identify for high volume litigation what is a reasonable level of effort so that they can promulgate or expand their fixed fee billing strategies. We're doing this because of the demand. It's as simple as that. There's a large demand for this. We've also helped individuals. So we've helped judges build and train cognitive solutions so that these solutions actually think like the judges. We have the ability to create cartridges of knowledge. It's not just about understanding language and building ontologies or domain-specific language libraries. It's also about recording the way certain professionals think. And here we have a judge who was challenged, by getting up to speed, given his caseload, getting up to speed quickly in a way that would allow him to attain comprehensive knowledge of a scenario, so that he could judge fairly. And so he did. And so he trained a tool to reason like he did. And he basically he opened a tool and he went through the process that he usually goes through to analyze and summarize information. And the tool effectively followed him in doing that, and then began to think like him. And it began to suggest things to him, and he validated those suggestions, thumbs up, thumbs down, until it began to align with the way he wanted to do things. And we can anticipate that going forward, there will be an opportunity for law firms to generate new revenue, completely net new revenue, by cartridgizing their know-how and potentially selling it to their clients, selling these knowledge cartridges to their clients, again, for high volume litigation. And so rather than worrying about AI completely disrupting high volume litigation, organizations can take advantage of it and monetize it. And in addition to providing actual guidance when necessary, can own the process of informing the way that AI impacts the legal industry, rather than having vendors take free rein, because we love to build things. As an inventor, I will say we love to build things, but we need to get it right. And it needs to be an informed process, informed by professionals. What should we build? What shouldn't we build? What constitutes the unauthorized practice of law? I've been working with the International Bar Association actually to help put together a set of standards around the practical and ethical application of AI. I should call them a set of principles, because AI changes all the time, that will allow organizations to have a common starting place and a common place of understanding, and will allow vendors to build things, to avoid building things that they shouldn't build, that no matter how cool they are, would otherwise expose customers to risk. Of course, IBM and Ross are bounded at the hip, and we're very proud of Ross and its abilities in bankruptcy law and IP law, and and they're ever growing. So this is a positive relationship, and they are an example of a business partner that's aggressively trying to delight the legal industry and scaling in a way to do that. One of the things that I do for IBM is I focus on the intersection of AI and blockchain. Blockchain, of course, is a ledger. You can think of it as a database. So the information on that ledger is visible to everyone who has access to it, and cannot be edited, cannot be hacked. It's essentially, it provides an indelible audit trail and a single version of the truth. And you can imagine where this would come into play. Again, think about an insurance process, think about workers' compensation. Did the injured worker go to the doctor? Yes or no? That gets published to a blockchain block. So there's proof every step of the way. Well, one of the problems that we're potentially facing in Europe around data privacy, around GDPR, is that it's likely that the law will require that those who sell and create AI solutions will have to show the math. They will have to show how the AI solutions were trained and how they reach their decisions forensically, a forensic audit trail that is similar to e-discovery. Now, you've read about Google probably, or you've read about other AI tools, and there's a lot in the news about how there's ambiguity about how these tools work, even to those who build them, because there are so many calculations going on behind the scenes, millions. If each of those calculations can be published as a blockchain block, and it can be, then what you have is you have AI with provenance. You have AI that can produce a forensic audit trail. So not only will that be legally compliant, but much more important, we can solve with blockchain, a combination of blockchain and AI, the garbage in, garbage out problem that I mentioned earlier, the fake news scenario. Imagine providing an AI tool with blockchain verified data, and that the tool is learning on that data, so that the quality, the efficacy of the insights that are produced, because they're produced on verified data, go up exponentially. And this is really the next step in the growth of AI in general. AI is limited by access to data. So if IBM is consulting with a client, we ask a law firm, how much data do you have about whatever problem you want to solve with AI? And if we ask a company, we ask, to use the outside counsel example, what is your highest volume area of litigation that you hire outside counsel for? And can you produce, X number of years of historical invoices? We can't really get higher than a company level, though. We haven't been able to, but we will be able to with blockchain. It will provide much larger training sets for AI. And, to the degree that now organizations are challenged by wanting to use AI, but not necessarily having enough data, we could create a blockchain network that anonymizes certain information and takes out the personally identifiable information. But different law firms might share some of this information, some of it, creating a larger training set for AI. And again, on verified data. I can't begin to highlight how profound that is, and what the implications will be for the quality of AI. And this is happening right now. It's in the very early stages, but this will transform entire industries without exaggeration or hyperbole. So the world to come, are we grossly unprepared for that world, for what is to come? And I think we are. We know less about AI than we think. There's a lot of ambiguity about what it is. Ask anyone, and they'll tell you something different. We know this. And not only that, but even though there's a renaissance in legal technology right now, just as there was in financial technology, in fintech, in insurance technology, in insurtech, even though there's a renaissance right now, and that's very positive, that renaissance poses a problem. We're still, in the world where the different solutions don't talk to each other. And so augmenting one process is great, but we rarely just have one process. We have connected processes. And we should think about AI not just as augmenting existing processes, hey, e-discovery, but with AI in it, matter management, but with AI in it. Yes, it makes sense to start there. But what might we learn about ourselves and our clients if we take a more holistic approach. Because we haven't seen this yet and don't have an experience of it yet at scale within our industry, it's hard to relate to, but this is absolutely what's coming. Another problem is one that I mentioned earlier, is that there's no common framework for the practical and ethical application of AI in the legal domain. And what better industry to inform that than the legal domain, to the benefit of the industries that you serve? This should be an Apollo mission, that has nothing to do with vendors. It should be an Apollo mission where the legal community comes together globally with jurisdictional nuance and helps inform this process, because AI will become table stakes across industries. It's like the printing press. The benefits that it delivers are so extreme. They tried to limit the printing press in its early days. The Roman Catholic Church did, and they couldn't. They couldn't, because the benefits were just so extreme. And AI will be very similar. Case in point, I'll tell you a very interesting story. So, at least I hope so. And it's around a massive project that IBM is involved in with AI, next level sort of stuff. So every year, of course, the federal government creates a new budget, and that's a complex process. There are a lot of moving parts: the health of the economy, party politics, different economic philosophies, the influence of lobbyists, etc. And 30% of the annual budget, of course, goes to fund the discretionary spending programs, things like national scientific initiatives, things like tuition assistance for low-income students, the military. And in order to decide how much money to spend on these programs, Congress relies on research conducted and gathered by the nonpartisan CBO, Congressional Budget Office. And I bet you didn't think you'd get a civics refresher today, so I apologize, but here's the problem. And actually, there are three problems. First, there's too much information for the Congressional Budget Office to efficiently gather and analyze in a given year. Second, even well-supported research that indicates clear social and economic trends isn't always adopted. It isn't politically expedient. And third, the researchers who work for the CBO represent many different silos of expertise: economics, education, healthcare, employment, and they lack the means to reliably identify trends and opportunities that run across their different fields of study. But what if they could? What if we possessed a machine that could read all of the information that the Congressional Budget Office analyzes to conduct its research and then some? And what if this machine, the software, possessed expert-level understanding in multiple fields of study? How would an economist that's simultaneously an expert in education, but simultaneously an expert in climate science, simultaneously an expert in employment and labor markets, how would they see the world through those lenses, pressed together? Well, spending might be allocated to scenarios that were objectively and empirically more likely to succeed. For example, in how to maintain a skilled labor force in different parts of the United States. Our hypothetical machine would likely identify insights and opportunities that wouldn't occur to individual human beings, and clear trends that would be difficult for human beings to identify would be identified, and our government and state governments would be challenged to ignore those clear trends. Not a perfect solution, but one with more advantages perhaps than the current approach. Now, this is not just a hypothetical scenario. Watson is beginning to work on this, and we are partnering with the United States government around the 2020 census as a first step in this direction. Eventually, we'd like to tackle the project that I've just summarized. So, AI can be a force for good. It can also be a force for justice and access to justice.